want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
1993, Harry Reid, a hardcore Democrat at the time, came up with a bill that had 10 points, one of which was clarifying that birthright citizenship does not apply to foreign-born parents. You have to be an American citizen on American soil for that to apply. This bill also, by the way, cracked down on the numbers of asylum seekers. It cracked down on human smuggling. It massively tightened our borders and really hit employers hard who hired illegals. I'm going to introduce, when I get back from recess on July 13th, the identical bill. And Laura, what it's going to do is highlight two things. The Democrats of today are nothing like the Democrats of 1993. And if they choose to reject a bill sponsored by their majority leader that they named an airport in Las Vegas after, then I think to my Republican colleagues, we have no choice. We have to recognize that these Democrats want to systematically destroy this country.
That is a fact. And those are the statements of Ohio Republican Senator Bernie Moreno. He said, I'm going to come back from the holiday and I'm going to reintroduce a bill that the Democrats signed on to and was authored by one of their leads in 1993. And that was, of course, Senator Harry Reid. He said it's going to be the exact bill where Reid declared and Democrats agreed when offered this bill that you cannot simply have a U.S. citizenship simply because you're born on U.S. soil. Now, the High Court yesterday ruled that that does not apply. You can, in fact, become a citizen even if you're just born here, nothing else. That was to contradict and in fighting against Trump's executive order when he first came into office saying no more anchor babies. You cannot simply come to our country, have your baby, and then go back to your other country and now have a child who's a U.S. citizen, even if you come legally. And certainly all those who poured across the border illegally during the Joe Biden administration, thank you, Joe Biden, they're also having babies left and right, and many of them coming in. We've already been told by Muslim clerics, Islamist clerics, that we're going to overpopulate your nation, and they will be U.S. citizens. That's exactly what they're doing. Vice President Vance said the decision by the court yesterday, 5-4, that we could not end birthright citizenship shows, quote, the concept of birthright citizenship is hanging by a thread. And he said it's a major mistake. You got pregnant foreign nationals who can come to the U.S. on vacation, give birth, and then them and their child and family have the full benefits of American citizenship. And the court cannot make a ruling on what it comes down to, a social reconstruct or destruct of the USA. They supposedly were making it on judicial principles of the Constitution. But, there's another side to that. And we're going to break it down for you as we move forward. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors USA, July 1, 2026. Larry Connors USA here for you every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. And when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. Are you watching right now? If not, go and do it or pull it later up as a video podcast. I'll tell you where in a minute. You see the cap I'm wearing? I've worn it once before. I'm wearing it again today. There's a U.S. flag and a cross in it. Senator Eric Schmidt has some cousins who have a company called Our True God. And they produce the most Christian and patriotic material, more apparel and caps and so forth than anyone else in the nation. Our True God. You can check it out and see for yourself if you want to get anything. And by the way, I'm wearing this in advance of our July 4th, our 250th birthday of our independence. And I'm also going to be wearing this cap when I go out to Las Vegas over the long holiday weekend and playing in the World Series of Poker. Everybody's going to see pushing patriotism. So I thank Will Smith for giving me this cap and want to point out again how you can get one as well. OurTrueGod.com. With Larry Connors USA, you're always going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You leave each hour with more knowledge than you have as we begin. So how do you watch the program? We are streaming right now. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, and Larry Connors USA Rumble. And reminding you, if you miss the video or audio and you want to pull it up and listen or watch later because you just can't fit it in your schedule now, I understand. Here's how you get it, though. You go to NewsTalkSTL. You go to LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook, or any podcast outlet you prefer to use. We leave it to you. You will simply search Larry Connors USA, and you should see us there. As always, we appreciate you listening. Coming up in our next hour, a retired police sergeant says Islamists are taking over our state. You might be surprised when you hear which state he's referring to. This is a retired police sergeant. And NPR, one of their principal reporters, makes an apology. It was due, but the way she did it deserves some praise. She made a mistake, but I've got some praise built inside her apology for her. We'll get into that in our next hour. And later this hour, the co-author of The Democrat Murder of America. The story behind the story. The Catholic Church deemed Mother Teresa a saint. Others are saying she is a monster. Why? The story behind the story coming later in this hour. Now back to the ruling of the High Court yesterday, 5-4, saying that those born in this nation on our soil are in fact U.S. citizens. President Trump's response.
The cost, forgetting about the fact that it's wrong, the cost of birthright citizenship is barely not affordable by our country. It's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's in their hands. What can I tell you? It's a common sense ruling. It's common sense. It was exact timing, and it's about the babies of slaves. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, he was glad someone actually asked a question so he could respond to it. Justice Clarence Thomas says that decision from the court establishing birthright citizenship is a modern political project built on a feudal principle rejected by the American Revolution. His dissent was co-signed by Justice Neil Gorsuch, saying the citizenship clause was consistently interpreted not to apply to the children of foreign temporary visitors who were by definition not domiciled in the U.S. Regardless of administration or party, the federal government for decades after ratification of the 14th Amendment regularly denied claims to citizenship by children who were born in the U.S. but not domiciled here. You know, one of the appointees from Barack Obama had challenged this as well, and she voted with the majority as well. And, of course, we got Amy Coney Barrett nominated by Trump. And, of course, Chief Justice Roberts also going with the majority to say, no, if you're born here, you are a U.S. citizen. But Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson responded with an answer and a sneer to Justice Thomas's remarks, saying he's a racist. There they go. You got to pull the racist card again. That's your only playbook? And in this case, you're calling Justice Clarence Thomas, a black man, a racist? I agree. Regardless of your color, your creed, your nationality, You're ginger. There are only two. You can be a racist. But she's got to throw that in and say, well, he made that because he's a racist. Give me a break. I want you to hear from a Democrat who does not like some of the attitude they're getting from the left right now, because they're going to piggyback off of this, because this means now that it's been declared that, yes, if you get to this country and have your baby, you will have a U.S. citizenship inside your family. Watch for that to escalate. And to that extent, Washington State Democrat Congressman Adam Smith says there will probably be many, many more trying to come across. I have no doubt about it. And he said, you've already got members in our Congress that want to get rid of ICE and help protect our border.
I think not having any immigration enforcement creates problems. It's also going to make it difficult for us to have an election. I think not actually, funding the police and having a criminal justice system creates less security. I also think that if you take personal responsibility and accountability out of it and just say we're going to give free stuff to everybody, then you have a problem making that work from a funding standpoint. Look, it's work hard, play by the rules, get ahead. We need more opportunity, but the agenda, as you just described, of some of these folks is pretty radical, and I don't think good policy.
That is a Democrat. I would say a base Democrat. He's speaking out and making it clear that I don't think this is a good policy. There's no doubt about it. Again, that is Washington State Democrat Congressman Adam Smith. Federalist writer we often have on, senior editor John Daniel Davidson, had a piece regarding the decision of the High Court. I'm just going to give you a couple lines right now. We'll do more in our next hour. Titled, Birthplace Citizenship is Incompatible with Mass Immigration. And that means regarded as legal or illegal. John Daniel Davidson states, under conditions of mass migration, legal or illegal, birthplace citizenship, are you listening? Are you listening? Birthplace citizenship means the destruction of the nation. In this case, our nation. House Speaker Mike Johnson says the crazies are trying to run the party and destroy our nation.
Now, here's what we face right now, surreal as it is. On the anniversary of the country, we have an open contest right now between the Marxists and communists and the Americans. Now, we've been saying for months that this is setting up, this midterm will be a contrast election. We've been saying a contrast between common sense and crazy. And now you can add another line there. It's common sense versus communism, because that's what's happening in the Democrat Party. The insurgent left is taking it over. I don't need to recount all the developments, even over the last week, for the people in this room, because you cover it minute by minute. But that is the contest that is shaping up. And so we're very sober-minded about this. A country that undermines its own foundations and founding principles does not survive.
And that would apply to the party itself. That's House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise said Democrats have officially become, quote, the party of socialism. Look at what's happening. The base Democrat Party has been under assault and continues to be under assault by the far-left loons, but now terrorists are trying to hijack what is left of the Democratic Party.
And then you had Mila Quiros beat a nearly 30-year incumbent Congresswoman Diana DeGette last night. Quiros, the latest Democratic Socialist to win their primary.
We believe that fundamental change can and will happen if we fight for it. If we organize and show no fear in standing up for what's right. That is the message that Denver has sent to both parties, to Donald Trump, and to the entire country.
That is a 29-year-old Democrat socialist born in Ethiopia, now a U.S. citizen, Quiros, who defeated a 15-term Democrat in Colorado's 1st Congressional District. Base Democrat, although I didn't always agree with that Colorado 1st District Congresswoman, She was not as crazy as what you're going to get from Quiros. And then you got what happened up in New York with Mondami endorsing all these socialist candidates, and one in particular for Congress, Democrat Socialist Xavier, Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman.
And she was praising Kim and Stalin. I mean, between those two men, 100 million, people murdered, like some of the most evil and terrible people, in the world or in history. And she was praising them, saying we don't have enough of their books, in our libraries. And of course, she deleted those things. But this is not ancient history. This is all recent views that people like this we are electing. And on this network, I've described it. I think it was with Jesse. I said, our party's becoming an orgy of socialism. And I think I've been vindicated to see the way these elections are working out. And now I'm watching the Colorado one, where she's the one person who refused to describe someone firebombed a group of Jews in Boulder. And she refused to call that anti-Semitism and just responded by saying, well, we really didn't know what their motivation, why they just set a bunch of Jews on fire.
That is Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman talking about the newly elected socialist Democrat in Colorado. You were hearing yell a moment ago, we're going to change everything. Once again, Washington State Democrat Congressman Adam Smith on those inside his party.
When you look at some of these Democratic Socialists that are running, their ideology is vastly more radical than that. And you see that in expressing support for communism, in expressing support for open borders, defunding the police, a fundamental attack on America itself and the premises behind it. And so it's dangerous that people come in saying, hey, I'm going to fight Trump, I'm new, I'm going to get after income inequality, but they're pushing ideas and agendas that are not popular in this country and, frankly, not good policy on immigration enforcement, again, on criminal justice, on the basic concept of personal responsibility, accountability, and economic opportunity. So it is a significant challenge for our coalition, no doubt about it.
Washington State Democrat Smith saying we've got Dems who are too radical. They're not really Dems, they're Democrat, Socialist, Marxist, Communists inside your party. Coming up, co-author of the book, The Democrat Murder of America. And the story behind the story, Mother Teresa, declared a saint, but also some call an angel from hell. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
Oh, smokestack lightning, shining just like gold. But don't you hear me crying? Woo,
woo. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. The group titled the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, considered one of the nation's leading advocates for constitutional government, individual liberty, local law enforcement authority. I've got on board with us right now a founder and president of that group, retired Sheriff Richard Mack. Sheriff, glad to have you on board with us, sir.
Thanks so much, Larry. It's great to be back with you in my home state of, where I was born. I was born in St. Louis, actually, but grew up in Arizona where I was sheriff.
All right. We're glad to have you, sir, and homecoming to you as well. Now, you are also co-author of a book titled, and the title says everything, The Democrat Murder of America. Go ahead.
Boy, isn't that a horrible title and a very offensive one at that?
And accurate.
Yes, but telling the truth can always be very offensive to, especially to people who are so loyal to their party that they can't see the truth. And so we really wrote this book for Democrats. and I pray that Democrats will be humble enough to actually try to read the book. And I promise every Democrat right now in the country, there's good people in the Democrat Party, but they've been hoodwinked. We all have friends and family that are Democrats and are blindly following the blind.
And in some cases, they're doing it simply because they hate Trump. How can you hate the president so much that you end up hating America?
Well, the book bears that out. I mean, the book talks about that, but look what the Supreme Court had to rule on yesterday about men playing in female sports. That's 100% brought to America by the Democrat Party. 100%. Why we have to even be talking about that is so absolutely absurd. And that's one of the innocuous things they're doing.
Yeah.
And so it's gotten way too far. The book points this out. We've gone too far in so many different aspects in our country and so many different levels, and the hate and the divisiveness, and yes, even the murder. But they haven't just murdered. The Democrat Party hasn't not just murdered the American dream and decency, but they have actually committed murders.
Yeah.
And the book tells the truth about that too.
All right, Sheriff Mack, I want to put this in front of you. Before you joined us, I was using some comments from Washington State Democrat Congressman Adam Smith, where he is admitting some of the Dems, those inside our party now, are too radical. And we saw the Mondami endorsement the other day that got a congresswoman. She won the primary. She'll end up in Congress, who is basically, even Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman, Democrat, had said she's too radical. She praises all the dictators in the world, and she has no problem with setting Jews on fire. They have hijacked. They're inside the tent. They want to have a big tent. They let them in, and now they're going to take it over and burn it down. So the Democrats have this battle inside their own ranks.
Yeah, and that proves all the more, Larry, how ridiculous and absurd the Democrats have become. They need to learn to take a stand and say, no, we're not going there. We are not supporting these communists and these murderers. She's literally saying, if you commit murder, that's fine, because we're not going to have any prisons and we're not going to have any police. So we're just going to let people run with that. And this is, look, like the book says, we've gone too far. For God's sakes, folks, let's get back to the fundamental principles of decency that our country was based on in the first place.
You know, the
solution isn't ahead of us. The solution is behind us. We've got to go back. And the epilogue of the book bears this out. I ask that every Democrat read the epilogue first, and then pick a few chapters. There's about 35 chapters in there, but they're powerful. Every single one of them are as powerful as hell. We have got to go back. And folks, we have to know the truth first.
Well, let's talk about going back. Let's talk about going back.
The mobocracy.
Hey, whoa, Sheriff Mack.
We're not even a democracy.
Sheriff Mack.
How is that crazy?
Sheriff Mack.
America
drop
is
his volume.
not a democracy.
Sheriff Mack, I need to have you calm down for a moment. I need to remind you, sir, this is an interview, not a monologue. Are you with me again?
Yes.
Okay, now I want to point something in front of you. You talk about going back. Before you joined us, we were talking and listening to Senator Bernie Moreno, Republican of Ohio, said, I'm going to go back. I'm going to reintroduce Senator Harry Reid, Democrat in Nevada, who at one time was a leader of the Democrats in the Senate, going to reintroduce his bill, Immigration Stabilization Act of 1993. He said was against birthright citizenship for illegals coming into our country. So he's telling them, we're going to go back to 1993 when Democrats at least had some sanity.
That's exactly right. And if you look at all the major political Democrats right now, they've all done it. Schumer did it. Obama did it. Clinton did it. They all talk about how we need some common sense in our immigration policies, and that just letting people in unfettered into our country and unvetted is dangerous, and it has been. And now where are we at? We have 30 million people here illegally, that and probably over 100,000, because I've been to the training on that. There's over 100,000 terrorists, international terrorists, who have set up sleeper cells all over our country.
I have no doubt about that.
Be ready around the 4th of July, folks. Be ready. Be very, very careful around the 4th of July.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to panic people. I don't want them to stay away from Independence Day celebrations. But
be careful.
But you got to be careful. You got to do that on a more constant basis for that very threat. And we know it's a reality. And even Democrats, base Democrats, there was a survey done the other day. I believe it was a YouGov poll, finding 25% of Democrats surveyed, those identifying as Democrats, think the USA is one of the worst countries. And 4% of those say we are the worst country. And yet they're still living here, walking among us.
Yeah, go home. Move to Cuba. Move to North Korea. Please do. Move to communist China. Yeah. But the biggest poll, though, that was taken just several months ago, was that 25% of them, even a little bit more than that, was almost 30, support murdering people like a president or whatever. If you need to, and if you have a good reason, it's okay to murder.
Well, New Jersey.
This is why the book is entitled the Democrat murder of America.
New Jersey Congresswoman Coleman says we need to eliminate Trump. Now, those words eliminate the way often, if a Democrat had said that about Obama, we need to eliminate, they would be crying out immediately. They want to kill him. And you remember Sarah Palin, when she was running as a vice presidential candidate, put out certain people and states, putting a crosshair over it. Oh, my God, she's sighting a rifle on us. She's going to kill us.
Well, yeah. If you want to compare today's Democrats to Sarah Palin, that's just absolutely impossible.
No, well, but at that time, though, the Democrats were saying she wants to kill us, and look what we have now going on in the Democrat Party.
Exactly, and the book tells the truth about Martin Luther King, tells the truth about Vince Foster, tells the truth about Marilyn Monroe. And a new name that most people don't know, Dorothy Kilgallen, who is investigating the JFK assassination. It tells the truth about JFK. And folks, we need to learn from every bit of this. And all I ask is every Republican get a hold of this book and give it to your favorite Democrat and show them the epilogue first so that we can make a change in America. We've got to come together as Americans, not as Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
We've got to come together as Americans. And please go to the website, murderofamerica.com. Murderofamerica.com. All one word. Murderofamerica.com, and get that book.
I want to thank you again for your time, sir, and your service to our country as a police officer standing in the gap. Richard Mack, retired sheriff, the book title, The Democrat Murder of America. Thank you, and wishing you a God bless July 4th, 250th Independence Day.
And you too, sir. Thank you so much, Larry.
You bet. You know, even former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, and even Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, when they're asked about these candidates that got elected on a socialist ticket and is endorsed by New York City Mayor Mondani, they kind of sidestep it. They don't even want to talk about it. Pelosi said, well, I never formally endorsed Mondani anyway. She also said she would reject socialism as an economic picture. She said, if people have that view, that's their view. That is not the view of the Democrat Party. Nancy, you're not only out, you're out of step with the Democrat Party and out. No, they're still there, and they're still trying to come at America and Americans, Democrat or Republican. Coming up, a story I'm going to have to tread lightly, and I'll explain why. Our story behind the story, dealing with Mother Teresa. The church declared her a saint. Others say, no, she wasn't.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website, NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice you have Under Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Very superstitious, writings on the wall. Very superstitious, letters about to fall.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
Mother Teresa, known as the Saint of the Gutters, is one of the most giving saints that we'll ever come across. From leaving everything to become a nun at age 18, to going to Calcutta to spend her life helping the most poor and destitute. This is the life of Mother Teresa. She was born on August the 26th, 1910 in Skopje, capital of the Republic of Macedonia. Her parents were devoutly Catholic and they baptized her the very next day as Agnes Goncha Boyhaju. When Agnes was just 8 years old, tragedy struck. Her father fell ill and died, and young Agnes grew very close to her mother. Her mother, Drana, was very compassionate in her nature, and she taught this to her young child. When she would invite the destitute over for a meal, she would explain to her daughter, "My child, never eat a single mouthful unless you are sharing it with others." Agnes learned from her mother when she was young, and she grew to be one of the most generous and compassionate person to ever walk this earth.
That is a presentation from a group titled Catholic 365 on the beginnings and the life and the practices of Mother Teresa. This is our story behind the story for today. Mother Teresa, the church made her a saint. Others are calling her a monster. Now, I'm going to break down for you who's making those allegations so we have a clear understanding as far as those calling her a monster or an angel from hell, and those who are declaring her a saint. Let me make it very clear to you here in the beginning. I am not Catholic. I'm not anti-Catholic. I am not Catholic. In fact, I've always admired and I praise what Teresa did in the view of what I saw. But there is another side that maybe you have not been exposed to. I'm not promoting the other side. I'm just making sure you understand the other side. It is part of the story behind the story. Mother Teresa in 1950 established the Missionaries of Charity, a religious congregation she said was dedicated to serving the poorest of the poor. This was in the slums of Calcutta. Over the decades, that congregation grew to operate in more than 130 countries, 4,500 nuns or more managing homes from those dying from HIV/AIDS, leprosy, TB. They were also running soup kitchens, dispensaries, mobile clinics, orphanages, schools. The members of her order were taking vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience, and each had to profess a fourth vow to give, quote, wholehearted free service to the poorest of the poor. All of that is a powerful way of life and a very disciplined form of life, and also a giving life to others. Of course, she was anti-abortion, but some of the things she did reference Calcutta and around her regions. She would also be against contraception methods. Not abortion, not supporting abortion, but contraception methods, which many say added to the burden on the poor of the poor. That's their take. In 1979, she was given the Nobel Peace Prize.
Let us all together thank God for this beautiful occasion where we can all together proclaim the joy of spreading peace, the joy of loving one another, and the joy acknowledging that the poorest of the poor are our brothers and sisters. As we have gathered here to thank God for this gift of peace, I have given you all the prayer for peace that St. Francis of Assisi prayed many years ago. And I wonder, he must have felt the need what we feel today to pray for. I think you have all got a paper with you. We'll say it together. Lord, make me a channel of your peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness.
Now, as I said, that was her speech, or acceptance speech in accepting the Nobel Peace Prize. Among her critics, many of them talk about, actually, you look at her medical clinic she set up, she was denying them patients painkillers, things of that nature that might make their life a little easier in their closing days. And in many places she was setting up not hospitals, but hospices, basically. And one of her main detractors, I'm going to give you more details on him as we move forward. He sees all religions as false, harmful, and authoritarian. So take that in mind, but he is also recognized as one of the pushers of new atheism. And, of course, he had critical remarks regarding Mother Teresa. His name is Christopher Hitchens.
You write about how Mother Teresa accepted a large donation of stolen savings and loan money from Charles Keating, giving him a crucifix in return and describing this pious fleecer of the small saver as a friend of the poor.
Yes, and taking rides on his private jet and interceding with the court when he was on trial in Los Angeles, saying he was a great friend of the poor. The court wrote to her and said, that's all very well, but he's given you lots of money that doesn't belong to him, belongs to the poor. And the small saver, can we have the money back? She broke off the correspondence at that point, which is very typical of her.
Why did you write the book?
Well, because I couldn't believe that anyone else had... Start again. I couldn't believe that nobody else had taken a second... I can't get this right. It was impossible for me to let such a fat target go by. I mean, here was someone at whom no one had taken a second look, whose publicity was always favorable, not to say adoring, yet who was all the time in the company of dictators and crooks and frauds and bullies of all kinds, and who was preaching a very, very, very reactionary kind of religious fundamentalism, while being universally called a saint. I thought the gap between these two things was so great that it merited a short book. And so it's got in there all the things that you don't know about Mother Teresa but should.
Again, that's Christopher Hitchens, British author, British and American author and journalist. The reference to Charles Keating and the money that Mother Teresa got from him, in case you have forgotten, Charles Keating was convicted felon real estate developer and lawyer, head of Lincoln Savings and Loan in Arizona. Convicted of multiple counts of fraud and racketeering. Spent several years in prison before his death in 2014 at the age of 90. And yes, he gave a lot of money to Mother Teresa's organization, so she was praising him. But then when told by the court, well, that's all fine and good, but he gave you stolen money, Hitchens is correct. She cut off any relationship in dealing with the court or Keating, supposedly at that point. Well, who is exactly this detractor of Mother Teresa? Christopher Hitchens. There is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
Mother Teresa is a Nobel Prize winner. She's a symbol. People in the West talk about her, so Indians adopt her at that level. The fact that what she does on the streets of Calcutta is really irrelevant to them. They couldn't care about it, and most of them don't even know. But Mother Teresa is the sort of figure you show to visitors.
Mother Teresa's flagship institution is her home for the dying, a hospice which purportedly sweetens the last moments of otherwise destitute lives.
My initial impression was of all the photographs and footage I've ever seen of Belsen and places like that, because all the patients had shaved heads. There are no chairs anywhere. There are just these stretcher beds, and they're like First World War stretcher beds. There's no garden, no yard even, no nothing. And I thought, what is this? This is 2 rooms with 50 to 60 men in one, 50 to 60 women in another. They're dying. They're not being given a great deal of medical care. They're not being given painkillers really beyond aspirin and maybe, if you're lucky, some Brufen or something for the sort of pain that goes with terminal cancer and the things that they were dying of. And I thought, what's the point?
Right from the very beginning, I wanted to serve the poor purely for the love of God and to give them what the rich people get with money. I wanted to give to the poor for the love of God.
For the love of God. Now, Christopher Hitchens, who had called her basically in his book, The Missionary Position, Mother Teresa in Theory and Practice, was basically calling her out for, quote, hypocrisy. Now, I'll point out something else about Hitchens. He also wrote books attacking the trial of Henry Kissinger, William Jefferson Clinton, and in his book, God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything, he described Billy Graham as a self-conscious fraud, a disgusting and evil man, making his living by going around spouting lies to young people. And he had the same view as you were hearing from that woman who saw some of the hospitals had been set up by Mother Teresa, that they were not really providing care. They were basically having them suffer more. And some have said and believe, and again, this will come down to your belief, that she felt the poorest of the poor, by suffering more, would bring them closer to Jesus. She herself had difficulties with her religion. She admits this. This is not Hitchens writing criticism of her, nor others who would try to detract from what she did provide. And many, many, many more believe that she was a saint, not just because the church declared her one, but because of what she was doing. One of the things, in addition to accusations of substandard care and mismanagement, they raised hundreds of millions of dollars and yet never had, quote, a state-of-the-art medical-type facility. They were basically warehoused on cots with shaved heads, often without a chair in the room, where they were restricted to lying on their cots or sitting on the cots and just facing their desperate time. She believed that that might move them closer to prayer to Jesus. That is what she had expressed. But for her own references, she had expressed grave doubts about God's existence and pain over her lack of faith. Those that know her said that she often experienced doubts and struggles, and that lasted nearly 50 years. And there is a quote from her: "Where is my faith? Even deep down, there is nothing but emptiness and darkness. If there be God, please forgive me. When I try to raise my thoughts to heaven, there is such convicting emptiness that those very thoughts return like sharp knives and hurt my very soul." The words of Mother Teresa. Others described that she was obviously going through a dark time of spirituality, dry spirituality. She passed away September 5, 1997. And again, the Catholic Church declaring that she was a saint. I'm not questioning that statement that she is a saint. I'm not buying into the story that she wasn't. But that is a big part of the story behind the story, and open to your conclusion. We have a second hour to come, and you do not want to miss it. We're going to be talking again about what we're seeing take place in our nation. Islamic jihadism setting up in places you would not expect. Remember our pledge: one nation under God.
You can hear podcast of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals: Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law. O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And, again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. OnderLaw.com. Wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
At the end of the day, the Democrats are the ones who are blocking it. Every single Democrat is blocking the Save America Act that's fundamental. It's common sense. It's 80% popular with the American people.
Do you think that John Thune should bring you all back? Do you think John
whatever
Thune
it
should bring
takes
the
to
Senate
pass
back?
it? If we can pass it, bring us back. I'm ready to go. I'll pack my bags and go to Washington tonight. If we can pass it, if we can get the votes on board to do that. But when we get back in 2 weeks after the 4th of July, what a better way to celebrate America 250 than to pass the Save America Act. That's something that I think we can fight for, find a way to do it, pass it. The voters want it, and it's common sense and fundamental. I'm on board.
It is common sense, and it is fundamental to the security of our nation. Those are the words of Indiana Senator Banks, Republican. The Save America Act, that is to protect election integrity. And the ruling yesterday by the U.S. Supreme Court saying that birthright citizenship cannot be denied, even though Trump said we're going to put an end to anchor babies, that's going to open up more fraud. We already have a decision reference when you can send in your ballots. They don't have to be postmarked a certain date. And in fact, in one state, California, that if it's a little blurred, as Hans von Spakovsky told us the other day, constitutional law expert, he said you can just kind of write your own date in. I ask you, can you post date your tax return to the IRS when it's due on April 15? It's due April 15, your tax return, even if you're not paying any money, but you're filing your return. Unless it falls on a holiday, a weekend or something, you might get a day or two of grace, but it's April 15. We all know that as tax day. It must be postmarked that day. I remember in the past where there would be lines of cars downtown St. Louis at the main post office, and they would have extra postal personnel on duty to catch the drivers coming by and take their tax form from them, their return. So it would be postmarked before midnight that night. Or at least if it was in the hands of the post office, if it were maybe a few minutes after midnight, it was still considered acceptable. But it was midnight, April 15. We have a federal election date, not a week, not a month, not 2 months, or whenever we have enough votes that we can move forward. and doing away with Trump's executive order, which the High Court ruled that was wrong. It was a 5-4 ruling. You have Chief Justice Roberts joining with the 3 liberals, and you had Amy Coney Barrett. And one of those against it in the 5-4 decision, Justice Alito, and I'm reading what he wrote in his dissent. This is the most important decision. Let me correct that. Let me reread it again. This is one of the most important decisions in the history of the court. And in my judgment, the court has made a serious mistake. He said, many children are born to foreign parents who are subject to a foreign power, such as they are here visiting, or they brought their pregnant wife, woman, mother, whatever that their relationship might be, to the States so the child could be born here on our soil and be declared automatically a U.S. citizen. But the allegiance of the parents is to their foreign power that they came from. And a child is too young to have an allegiance one way or the other. Alito pointed out a great many persons who are born here to illegal immigrant parents fail this subject to foreign power test because at birth they are automatically made nationals of their parents' native country and as a result incur duties to that country. That means they are, quote, subject to a foreign power and thus not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and within the meaning of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was passed in the 1800s basically so slaves who were brought here in shackles and chains and then had children, that they could be declared, those slaves, that they are U.S. citizens and their children would be born of U.S. soil. They would be children. Geography at the time, communications, transportation from the 1800s to now dramatically changed. But it's going to provide an opportunity for those who want to cheat in our elections and flood us with illegals or even, quote, legals, if born here in the soil, will come back to bite us in the butt, I will guarantee you. I might not be here to see it. Maybe not you, but your children and grandchildren will pay the price. Our forefathers paid a price for us. And here we are 250 years young, I would like to say. 250 years young. Not old, but young. In other words, I'm looking forward to another 250 years. I will not be here for that one. I do know that. And nor you. Welcome to the second hour of Larry Connors USA, July 1, 2026, where you get news, analysis, commentary, and education. You leave each hour with more information than you had when you began listening that hour. That is my guarantee, gold stamp guarantee. Hold me to it. In our hours we move forward, Islamists invading U.S. and where you're finding them creating more and more havoc and possibility of trying to impose Sharia law, you might be surprised. And also, NPR columnist, correspondent, I should point out, a recognized NPR correspondent makes an apology. She was in a rush to get something out first and failed to make sure it was accurate before she went first. I'm going to detail that for you, but I'm not looking to condemn as much as clarify and even praise the correspondent on one hand. That's coming up later in this hour. But right now, dealing with what we're seeing in our nation and inside the left party, the Democrats, they realize what has happened. What the hell has happened? Remember Ronald Reagan was a Democrat? And he said, I didn't leave the party, they left me. You got a lot of Democrats, a Democrat base that believe in America, support America, love our country, and they're watching their party be hijacked. They've slowly ebbed and went along with wokeism, DEI, and everything else. And now they're pushed into a corner by those who say, you're not strong enough and far enough left because we want to push something more. And Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson calls it out.
Now, here's what we face right now, surreal as it is. On the anniversary of the country, we have an open contest right now between the Marxists and communists and the Americans. Now, we've been saying for months that this is setting up, this midterm will be a contrast election. We've been saying a contrast between common sense and crazy. And now you can add another line there. It's common sense versus communism, because that's what's happening in the Democrat Party. The insurgent left is taking it over. I don't need to recount all the developments, even over the last week, for the people in this room, because you cover it minute by minute. But that is the contest that is shaping up. And so we're very sober-minded about this. A country that undermines its own foundations and founding principles does not survive.
It doesn't survive. And he made a statement there that, you know, a lot of folks have wanted to call in the beginning, and some still do, Trump's a nationalist. He only cares about the USA. Well, of course that's what he cares about. Do you think the French president cares about the USA that much more than his country? Do you think Putin cares more about the USA than Russia? Of course not. If you're the leader of that country, you care more about that country. That does not make you a nationalist. That makes you a patron of your country, your nation. And those in the Democrat Party who definitely want to be and are patriots to this nation, but have slowly yielded and then became afraid to even speak out against the growing crisis on the left. Now they're caught in a vice. Washington State Democrat Congressman Adam Smith.
When you look at some of these Democratic socialists that are running, their ideology is vastly more radical than that. And you see that in expressing support for communism, in expressing support for open borders, defunding the police, a fundamental attack on America itself and the premises behind it. And so it's dangerous that people come in saying, hey, I'm going to fight Trump, I'm new, I'm going to get after income inequality, but they're pushing ideas and agendas that are not popular in this country and, frankly, not good policy on immigration enforcement, again, on criminal justice, on the basic concept of personal responsibility, accountability, and economic opportunity. So it is a significant challenge for our coalition, no doubt about it.
And he's recognizing his coalition, the Democrat Party. We got fires everywhere. Now, they want to be a big tent party, but they've got arsonists in their midst. They've got terrorists in their midst. And those who speak out against them, they will primary you and take you out, as they did in Colorado, knocking off a 15-year Democrat for Colorado's first congressional district. She wasn't far enough left. She was one of those preaching and calling out, as is the New York elected congresswoman who will be fully in place because she won the primary, Chevalier, endorsed by Mondami, all about we need less government in our nation, and we damn sure do not need immigration control, and let's get rid of ICE. To that point, again, Washington State Democrat Adam Smith.
I think not having any immigration enforcement creates problems. It's also going to make it difficult for us to have an election. I think not actually, funding the police and having a criminal justice system creates less security. I also think that if you take personal responsibility and accountability out of it and just say we're going to give free stuff to everybody, then you have a problem making that work from a funding standpoint. Look, it's work hard, play by the rules, get ahead. We need more opportunity, but the agenda, as you just described, of some of these folks is pretty radical, and I don't think good policy.
Nope. And in fact, the winner of the Democrat primary in Colorado, she unseated a 15-term Democrat in Colorado's first congressional district. You know how she became a U.S. citizen? She legally immigrated to the U.S. via her father. She was a child, but her father, a socialist, thanks to the federal government, our government, diversity visa lottery. We allot about 1 million plus into our nation every year. And her father got one of the visa lotteries, which gives out 55,000 visas every year to foreign nationals. They put in for it, and by lottery, he got it, came to the country. He's a socialist, has raised a socialist daughter who probably is even out of control of what he would think. And you want an example of how crazy the crazies are? New Jersey Congresswoman Coleman.
Because if we wanted to eliminate abuse and fraud, we'd eliminate the President of the United States from the office right now and the rest of the sycophants in his administration that are allowing him to do so many illegal things.
We want to eliminate Trump, to eliminate. The other word is kill. Oh, Larry, she didn't say that. She didn't say that. Yeah, but come on. Look at the attempts upon his life and attempts upon anyone who stands in their way. Now, if Republicans had used that term in any fashion regarding Obama, they would be called out. You want to kill Obama, because the left would rush to the cause. And here's the other thing. Democrats inside their own party, they won't speak out. And they really don't have anything to run on except going against Trump. Perfect example regarding a question posed for Georgia Senator Ossoff.
You talk about alleged crimes of the president. You talk about corruption for the president. If you guys take back the House and the Senate, should you impeach the president and convict him?
Look, as I've said in the past, it is my view, looking at the facts and the conduct and misconduct of this president, that he has already engaged in gross misconduct that exceeds the standard previously set for the impeachment of any president. What I think is that there has to be accountability. And that is...
Does that mean impeachment?
Let me just say accountability. Well, as I've said, I think that his misconduct has already exceeded the standard previously set for presidents when it comes to impeachment.
So, Senator Ossoff, you had no problem with Biden. None. Never spoke out. And again, the only thing you're running on is impeach Trump, not making things better for Georgia citizens. Just impeach Trump. Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman says, you look at that Democrat socialist that Mondami endorsed, Chevalier, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
And she was praising Kim and Stalin. I mean, between those two men, 100 million, people murdered, like some of the most evil and terrible people, in the world or in history. And she was praising them, saying we don't have enough of their books, in our libraries. And of course, she deleted those things. But this is not ancient history. This is all recent views that people like this we are electing. And on this network, I've described it. I think it was with Jesse. I said, our party's becoming an orgy of socialism. And I think I've been vindicated to see the way these elections are working out. And now I'm watching the Colorado one, where she's the one person who refused to describe someone firebombed a group of Jews in Boulder. And she refused to call that anti-Semitism and just responded by saying, well, we really didn't know what their motivation, why they just set a bunch of Jews on fire.
That's not a motivation? Of course it is. I have to admit, when Senator John Fetterman first appeared on the scene, I was anti-Fetterman all the way, and I was more for Mehmet Oz, obviously. But it's the Pennsylvania voters that would decide. And they ended up taking Fetterman, clothed in a hoodie all the time. I thought, that's not what we want. Well, you know what? Under that hoodie is a working brain and a common sense brain. But his party is lurching out of... They are capsized. This is not the Titanic. This is even worse. And then we have Islamists in our nation and terrorists. And particularly one state being targeted. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Retired from the Plano Police Department after 26 years of full-time law enforcement service, and I dealt with representatives of EPIC many times when I was the sergeant for the Plano Police Department, the training sergeant for the Plano PD. There seems to be a general misunderstanding that we're talking about a plan to build an Islamic Sharia-friendly community. The EPIC neighborhood already exists in Plano. It's been there for nearly 12 years. With 74 residential properties, a massive mosque, schools, a medical clinic, and multiple businesses. It also has an office of an Islamic financing institution called the UIF Corporation. The UIF Corporation is not a bank. It's a Michigan-based corporation whose publicly stated purpose is to, quote, engage in financial transactions that are Sharia compliant, end quote. Those are their words, not mine. The local government officials south of here have known for years that only Muslims can purchase homes inside that neighborhood. You have to be a member of their mosque to live there.
That is a retired police sergeant in Plano, Texas. Let me give you some geography here quickly in case you're not aware of it. Plano is part of the Dallas-Fort Worth suburb. In Plano itself, headquarters for several major companies. In fact, you look at a list of some of them and you'll find some that you would recognize. One, Fritos. Yep, Fritos. Also a hub for J.C. Penney, Pizza Hut, Toyota Motor North America. Now, if you're asking if Plano is Democrat or Republican, it's considered a politically mixed city, but recent election results show a Democrat lean. But conservative Republican continues to hold strong, but it's leaning more left and is becoming more Islamist. Not Muslim, but Islamist. Islamists would practice Sharia law regardless of what you think of it. In the presidential election of 2020, which is one of the latest I've found that I can verify quickly, and that is the Democrat presidential ticket got 53+% of the vote. Now, why are we focusing on Plano, Texas? It's because that police sergeant was saying they are already working on an epic city nearby. They're doing that in Josephine, Texas. That's also part of the Fort Worth, Dallas Metroplex. Josephine is about 25 miles to the east of Plano, Texas. And in Josephine, they have presented what they want to call the East Plano Islamic Center, an epic, which is going to be recreated in Josephine like they have already in Plano. That retired police sergeant says they have been here. They've been here. They've had their epic East Plano Islamic Center. There had recently been a federal lawsuit because the state's funeral agency and its former presiding officer were claiming that there was religious discrimination involving and against the East Plano Islamic Center. The judge wrote there is no evidence suggesting, and neither party is alleging, that EPIC, the East Plano Islamic Center, is applying Sharia law in their statements, despite repeated statements from Texas Republicans. So they're already challenging the effort to put Sharia law in place. They do have a Sharia law bank. You must be a member of the Muslim community if they're going to loan you money. That's a discrimination on its face value. That's yet to be challenged. But back to the retired police sergeant in Plano saying, I see what they've been doing. And he points out specifically to a neighborhood that they have built right up against the Plano City Police Department.
The first house built in that neighborhood was built right next to the Plano Police Academy. It's a huge structure with two separate front doors. The rear of the property is just a few feet from a large outdoor warning siren. The house has a large second-story platform overlooking the restricted access parking lot where the police department stored specialized vehicles such as bomb trucks, bomb disposal equipment, and the SWAT team's armored vehicle. I am a court-recognized expert in SWAT team tactics and procedures. That house has all the hallmarks of a fortress and a command post. The rear of the house looks a lot like an observation post and a shooting platform. Why would somebody choose to build a house so close to a giant warning siren and a police training site? Why would someone build a huge platform overlooking all those specialized police emergency vehicles?
In other words, again, according to this retired police sergeant, he said it looks like an observation post looking directly into the back side of our academy and our police operations so they can monitor what vehicles we have back there, when they're there and when they're not. He's not saying it, but the underlying suggestion is they're spying on us. But if it's in the open, it is available by sight if you're high enough and you have a position where you can watch. Why would they be doing that? I'll tell you what the fear is of the police officers there. They're worried that someone will use the platform overlooking as a sniper's position. They're not going to say it directly, but that's what they're concerned about. And the building permit just was looking at the building itself and So it's next to a police station, no big deal. But then when they start realizing, maybe in hindsight, maybe that wasn't a good idea to allow it to build there. But how could you, if you could, keep them from building there? Should you? Again, this retired Plano police sergeant said what they're doing in many ways, they're not even hiding their intent.
The first owner of that house is a leader in the Epic neighborhood, and he is also the co-founder of the Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research. And I urge everyone to visit their website and read what it has to say about instituting Sharia law. This is not a matter of radicals hiding in plain sight. They're not hiding. They've been open about their beliefs and their intent. Local government decision makers have failed to ask hard questions for fear of negative publicity and being labeled as bigots. I'm not here to spread innuendo or to make unfounded accusations. I'm asking everyone to simply look at the evidence and the confirmed facts that are already in existence. Thank you for your time, Judge.
And when you look at the facts and statements already made, numerous Muslim clerics have said, we will overpopulate your nation. And the Supreme Court ruling of yesterday will give them further ability to do that. They will have more children. Those who are here legally or illegally will have more children born in the USA, so they have a U.S. passport citizenship, and they can vote when they become of age. Some are being brought in just for that, go back to their country, and then will later come and vote. And again, Justice Alito and Thomas were among the four fighting against the decision that established birthright citizenship as a constitutional right. Thomas, in his dissent, co-signed by Justice Gorsuch, stated, the citizenship clause was consistently interpreted not to apply to the children of foreign temporary visitors who were by definition not domiciled in the U.S. Well, of course, we have a lot of them domiciled in the U.S. because they came in illegally through the open border. Thank you, Joe Biden. They're not here legally, but if their child's born here, that child is legal. Now, I don't want to break up families. I cannot insist enough. I don't want to do that. But they put themselves and their children into that position. And take mind of this. I pointed this out in the first hour, but it bears repeating. Ohio Republican Congress Senator Bernie Moreno said, I'm going to reintroduce what Senator Harry Reid did from Nevada back in 1993. He was the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, Senator Harry Reid. He had the Immigration Stabilization Act of 1993. He said, I'm going to present it again, word for word, just like Reid did when he was wanting to stop illegals from coming into the country and end birthright citizenship. You think the Democrats this time around would support it like they did back in 1993? Those Democrats don't exist anymore. Some might have a small streak of it in their blood, but for the most part, they're being overrun. If you just suddenly arrived in this world, much less this country, you might see things have changed from where we were not that long ago. And in fact, one of those imprisoned on the J6 charges and finally pardoned had an awakening when he got back outside prison.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL.
I'm gonna run away to duck gun carry, make camp where the land is bare. I'm gonna run away to duck gun carry, ain't no one gonna find me there. Ain't no one gonna find me there. Found trouble in the town I come from, left 6 months ago or so. I had to run from the man I wronged there.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
For many people, you know, this has been like the frog that's in the boiling water, and because it boils slowly, the frog doesn't jump out. But I came out of 4 years and 6 days in prison, never having a trial, never being found guilty of anything, to a completely changed America. South Americans had infiltrated our country, tens of millions of them, including plenty of Somalis and Afghanis and Yemenis, all the people that Zoran Mandami thanked for winning that jihadi race there in New York. And so I got out to a culture shock. And what I realized was, the country I grew up in is no longer here. And the people of Dearborn, Michigan have been completely displaced. We need to look no further than London, England, then Rome, Italy, then Paris, France. The Islamic Middle East people have moved in there and completely pushed out the people that built the country, the heritage, the value system, the religious values there. And they've replaced the American people in Dearborn. They've replaced the American people in Plano, Texas.
That is a former J6er, Jake Lane, who was in prison and never really got a trial. He got pardoned by President Trump when he came in because the whole J6 revolution didn't really exist. They were just grabbing up people wherever they could because they were probably Trump supporters. Now, I did say, and I'll stand by this, if you were battling police, hitting and striking at them, then you should serve some jail time. I don't know all the specifics on Jake Lane. I've seen some, but I also know a lot of people were simply walking through the corridors of Congress inside the velvet ropes. They didn't even break through, but they were rounded up as well and facing legal charges and cost to try to protect themselves. And Some ended up being jailed and never got a trial. He's one. But he said, when I came out, it was not the same America I see when I went in. In 4 years' time. In 4 years' time. Over the Biden administration. That's how radically we changed. And he points to Europe, says, all these countries in Europe, they're undergoing this. Just what? This is again echoing, and I apologize for those of you who are constant loyal listeners if you think I'm beating on this drum too often. But I don't think I can do it enough. And that is, look at what's happening in Europe. And it will happen here, and it's more likely to happen now with a high court ruling that if you have a child born in this nation, they are automatically a U.S. citizen. We'll look for more legals to come into our country legally through an asylum temporary status or whatever, have a baby, go back to their country, and then I have a child that is a U.S. citizen and return later to cause havoc or maybe come back and do good. But look at Europe. Spanish police talking about the lax requirements imposed by the nation's socialist government. They estimate upwards 400,000 illegal migrants filed mass amnesty applications, even though they have not lived in Spain last year. As of Tuesday, June 30th, marked the last day for illegal migrants in Spain to file an application for the mass amnesty plan launched earlier this year by the socialist prime minister. Part of what they had to do is live in Spain before December 31, 2025, demonstrate they have no criminal record, do not pose a threat to public order, public safety, or public health. That's all common sense stuff. The Spanish government earlier this year admits it expected 500,000 illegals to receive the amnesty benefits, but almost 1.3 million requests were filed as of last week. And apparently out of that 1.3 million, there are 400,000 who never lived in Spain. And now, as we point out as to the ruling from the High Court the other day, ruling that if you are born in our nation, you automatically become a U.S. citizen. John Daniel Davidson, senior editor for The Federalist, said, under conditions of mass immigration, legal or illegal, birthplace citizenship means the destruction of the nation. And we talked about that extensively in the first hour, in case you missed it. You can always pull up these programs, do not forget, as a podcast. You can pull them up for yourself and to share with others. How do you do that? You go to NewsTalkSTL, or you go to LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. You'll find every program posted, unless we have some kind of technical difficulty with just surfacing from time to time. But Justice Alito and Clarence Thomas were against giving automatic citizenship. In fact, Justice Alito said it's grotesque to do it in that fashion. And Justice Thomas said birthright citizenship is based on feudalism. He said the court, this is what Thomas wrote, the court says that the citizenship clause incorporated by the English feudal principle that subjects, not becoming a citizen, but a subject, owed lifetime servitude to the king who owned the soil on which they were born. But Americans, unsurprisingly, rejected this feudal principle. They did in the beginning. Well, how did it come to be? Well, the 14th Amendment, because of slavery. Those brought to this country against their will in shackles and chains and enslaved. 14th Amendment was to grant them citizenship and their children if they were born on our soil. That's the 1800s. We're way past that. Geography, transportation, and everything nowadays, Makes it so easy for so many to come in. And you got to keep in mind the attitude that exists among the Democrats as to pride in our nation, or lack of. I'll come back to that later before we wrap up this hour. And I've got an important announcement for you before we wrap up the hour. You do not want to go anywhere. But I had also talked about earlier about NPR making an apology. And I said I could find reason to praise what happened. I can condemn it, but I can also praise it. Here's what happened. The legal affairs correspondent for NPR, National Public Radio, Nina Totenberg, issued a public apology and retracted a breaking story that had incorrectly reported that Supreme Court Justice Alito was retiring. It occurred on the final day of the Supreme Court term, Tuesday. And it did briefly trigger widespread speculation in media before NPR realized we're wrong. She also Totenberg did not only a letter of apology to Justice Alito, but she read it during an episode of NPR's All Things Considered. She said, I incorrectly heard retirement announcements instead of announcements after rushing from the courtroom. What happened was there's already been talk and consideration that Alito might step aside. He is part of the court's conservative bloc alongside Justice Clarence Thomas and supposedly Amy Coney Barrett, but certainly Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch. John Roberts is not part of that, although he is the Chief Justice. But she misheard what was being stated as they wrapped up the term. So she rushed out and reported it. And then later she recognized, why I'm not seeing more reaction? Why not more people and press agents running back into the courthouse, the Supreme Court, asking about Judge Alito retiring? So in her letter, in which she also read on NPR's All Things Considered, Dear Justice Alito, there are no words to adequately apologize for today's error in reporting your retirement. It was entirely my fault. Praise for her for that point. She said, I rushed out of the courtroom after the opinion announcements, and when I realized that the usual rush of folks after a few minutes had not happened, I asked somebody what was going on inside, to which the answer was retired announcements. She said, I didn't hear the S on announcements. And I assumed something no reporter should ever do, make an assumption. I added that line, she didn't. But I assumed something no reporter should ever do, that you were retiring. It was the worst professional mistake of my more than 50 years in journalism. I could go on, but I don't know what else to say to accept that I am so sorry. Again, I praise her for that. Normally, an apology made by a leftist-leaning publication, broadcast, whatever, you bury it. The retraction was put on the NPR homepage within minutes, or rather her original story, but within minutes it was replaced by an editor's note saying there was no retirement announcement. And the NPR editor-in-chief apologized. Look, here's the thing with apologies, especially if they're in print. They'll print the apology, but it's going to be buried on page, if the paper has that many pages, page 43.5, down below advertisement for where you can buy the latest latex gloves or whatever. But in broadcast, you have to make the apology directly on the air. You have to take the time and make an apology and say that story I told you about was wrong. Here's what she did. And she admits it, which, again, I will praise her for that. And she did make a rookie mistake. In years in this business, I pushed the fact I want to be first. I want to be first, but I want to be accurate. Accuracy above rushing to be first. Rushing first to be wrong is not anything I want to claim. Have I made some mistakes in the past? Yes. Have I read mistakes that were handed me and I did not know the background, but I assumed that written by the reporter or whatever that it was correct, and so that's the way I read it, and then later we had to issue a retraction. And I had to read it back on the air and make a correction. Even though it wasn't my direct mistake, I read it. Listen, when it comes to making mistakes in this business, like she did, even after 50 years, making a rookie mistake, there are those who have made those mistakes and those who will. So I'm acknowledging that she's calling it out, and she's not trying to blame anyone else. She says it's on me. And for that, she does get my praise. You're not getting a lot of praise from the Democrats for our nation in general right now, are you? And, of course, they also have other things in mind. And they took a lot away from the court ruling the other day regarding birth citizenship. President Trump's response.
The cost, forgetting about the fact that it's wrong, the cost of birthright citizenship is barely not affordable by our country. It's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's in their hands. What can I tell you? It's a common sense ruling. It's common sense. It was exact timing, and it's about the babies of slaves. Thank you for that question.
By the way, Minnesota Democrat Governor Tim Walz made a remark about another ruling by the Supreme Court, referenced transgender athletes, saying it's cruel to trans kids. Here in Minnesota, we stand with our trans neighbors. It's cruel to say boys must play with boys in sports, and they cannot claim to be trans and go participate in girls' sports. And Walz is insisting that was cruel. You know what? The backlash he got immediately from conservatives. I'll tell you what's cruel is making a teenage girl who's already uncomfortable in her own skin have to change in a locker room next to a naked boy. That's Minnesota Republican State Senator Coleman. And what's cruel is letting our girls get the stuffing kicked out of them by biological males. That's cruel. I agree. I agree full-heartedly. All right, I want you to enjoy our 250th celebration of our Independence Day, July 4. I'm taking some days off, but we are going to give you the best of Larry Connors USA, and it's a tough task deciding the best of. But we will be having those programs air for you. I will be in Las Vegas in the World Series of Poker and other events. But honoring July 4th as I hope you do. And remember our pledge,